Of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to INCRadio Florida. I'm one of your hosts, Brother Robert Topalas, coming to you from here in slightly chilly, but still very sunny Florida, and we're enjoying it. This is winter in Florida, and technically we haven't even hit winter. We are still less than, I think, about 10 days from the official start of winter here in the United States. But it's going to be a very typical winter, hopefully, here in Florida, which means that we won't be seeing any snow, and I'm okay with that, actually. But I want to go ahead and also welcome. We have a great topic today. We're super excited because we have a special guest who's joining us along with my co-host, Sister Elida, who happens to be there in Central Florida. Good morning, Sister Elida. How you doing?
Hello, good morning. As you can tell, I am kind of cold. Which
Is that a sweater you're wearing? Is that really a sweater? You're putting on a jacket?
It's a sweater because I am now a true Floridian, and when it is less than like 70 degrees, it's cold to me. So
it's been crazy. It's been crazy. We've had like the temperatures, 2 days ago? I think it was 42 degrees down here, which basically brings us to a standstill. But today we have a special guest who's joining us who happens to be a native Floridian, meaning that he was, because the rest of us, most of us in Florida are transplants, right? And Brother Shane, would you mind introducing yourself and letting us know where you're from originally?
Yeah, I'm from Sarasota, so I'm wearing a sweater. See, it counts, right? I'm with you, sister. I'm with you. Below 70 might as well be a blizzard. It's winter time, and I've tried to move up north, and I did not last at all. I do not like cold weather. I actually am going back and forth with Sister Lulu quite a bit because she likes the cold and I like the heat.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, my wife just enjoys the fashion options that accompany the colder weather. Not as many fashion options apparently when it's warm. So she does enjoy that, Brother Shane. Well, Brother Shane, thank you for joining us today, because today our topic, I think, is extremely timely, especially now that we're nearing the end of the year, and we're going to be talking about what are the pieces of advice, what are some of the nuggets that we would give our younger selves. And of course, Brother Shane, we have a lot more advice probably to give our younger selves, and Sister Elida, who, of course, is also has gained a vast amount of experience, even though, she may not have been here on this earth as long as you and I. But I think that it's going to be important that we share these because and there are no right or wrong answers, right? Because when we talk about what's the advice you would give your younger self, all of that's going to come from experience. And all three of us have had different experiences, in different ways that we've gone through life. We talked about it actually before the show, how, the greatest teacher is experience. And you just kind of have to roll with it and hopefully be able to learn from all of those different things. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Of course, thank you for joining us this morning. It's, of course, Saturday, December 14th. We are 16 days from the end of the year, or technically 17 days. I forget how many days are in December, Brother Shane. It's 31, right? 31. Thank you. And I can't believe this year's almost over. So this is, I think, a perfect topic for us to talk about. So let's jump right into it this morning, because I think it's going to be important that we have as much time as possible to be able to share all of these different nuggets of advice. And, one of the things that we're going to do, the way I kind of want to go through this, is that we'll just kind of hit each question. And I'd like to ask each of you, Brother Shane and Sister Elida, what advice would you give for that specific theme? So let's start off with the first one, which is the power of taking risks. Now, when we talk about taking risks, it talks about stepping outside your comfort zone. And how does stepping out of your comfort zone help you maybe unlock some opportunities and lead to personal growth? Or do you think that it's better that we always kind of weigh the consequences of the decisions that we make? So I'm going to start off with you, Brother Shane. What advice would you give your younger self? And I'm going to take a guess which one of the people on these photos as you, right? So
Yeah. So it's kind of a two-sided thing. So there are many things in my life. Everything good that's ever happened to me um, came out of a risk. For example, when I, not to bring it back to the church immediately, but when I came to the church, that was a big risk for me. A friend of mine had been telling me to go from the Philippines. He found the chapter in Tampa online. He convinced me to go when I was at a weak moment, and I was terrified. And I went in, and it changed my life. Right. I grew up in a small town in a very very sheltered environment, and I left, which was a big risk. I moved 25 times. I changed jobs. I changed careers. Each time I did that, at the time it was terrible. But 3 years later, it was fantastic. I made more money. I had a great career. I met interesting people. I did cool things. Um, there's always a flip side to that, though, because each risk you take, you have a gain, but there's a cost. So I moved a lot. I traveled a lot. I lost connection with my family. I've got some other family members here that left the Philippines to come to the U.S. and they took that same risk. My mother-in-law left when she was 22 to come to the U.S. and totally severed from her family and only had the church when she got here. Huge risk, but in the end, now her whole family is here, so that was a benefit from that risk. But she had a very hard 5 years when she got here in the beginning, and so you got to. My advice that I would give to myself would be, yeah, take those risks. Just don't be such a jerk to everybody as you're doing it.
as you're doing it.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because taking risks often leads to a lot of victimization on the wayside, right? A lot of people who are hurt, and it's important that you understand what impact risks have on others in your life aside from yourself. So I think that's spot on. So what about you, Sister Lida? When you were younger, did you tend to take more risks, or were you more kind of conservative and would weigh things?
I would say before or when I was younger, I would do more and think less, I think. So I
Makes
was
sense.
definitely more of a risk taker, as in like, oh, I want to ride, oh, that roller coaster. It seems scary, but I'll just do it anyway. But
So what if the
now,
seat belts don't work? I mean,
yeah, no,
it'll
I
be
don't think
fine.
about that. I've never like thought about it like that before, but now if I see a roller coaster, then I'm like, I don't know about that. So
Why
I
would I
would
do that?
yeah, I would say my advice is more for my recently younger self. Like not really like me in the picture. That's me right there holding the Winnie the Pooh blanket
The little
pillow
teddy
thing.
bear, right?
So I would say like now it's more important to take risk now, especially like don't be so scared, of every little thing that could go wrong. How about focus on the things that could go right, So
It,
that's where
it's
I'm
It's
at.
isn't it a saying that without risk there's no reward, right? Is that a
Right.
saying? I think I've heard
Yeah,
that
that's
before.
definitely a
And
thing.
so you definitely want to be able to grow and be able to allow yourself to learn and experience more. So and some of that comes along with taking risks. But
Yes.
it's like you said, we want to take risks, but always have it be measured. So this way we're careful about the impact it'll have. All right. So the next one, investing in yourself. And we're not talking about money. Although I think, Brother Shane, you're going to talk about a little bit about how that makes a part. But when we talk about investing in yourself, are you prioritizing education over working? Do you want to build new skills, self care? Being able to take care of yourself and exercising. What advice would you give yourself? So let's hop back. Well, actually, let's start with you this time, Sister Lida. What advice would you give yourself around how to invest in yourself?
Actually, when I was raised, my parents raised me to try like hobbies, like have a lot of hobbies and try different things.
Mhm.
So I actually had a conversation with them yesterday, and I was like telling them, it's like, you know what? Thank you so much for encouraging me to try things because I have like a lot of hobbies that I like to do now. So um, I think this advice is not applicable for me in my younger years, but I don't know if I can like switch it to like give advice to my older self, maybe I'll look back on this video and
We'll throw that as the episode that we'll have, and then we'll use this sound bite and throw that in
yeah,
there.
I
But
know. Yeah. We'll go back in time. We'll use this. But I would say like for sure, I think exercising is so important. And I'm just realizing that now. And I'm 24. So I feel like exercising is super, super important, especially when you get into your older years. I got actually when I was like going up, I think I was walking and I was with my mom and my knee started feeling weird. And I was like, is this what it's like to be mid 20s? Like, I'm like, is this what it's like? Why does my knee feel weird? This is so weird.
just it only gets worse if you don't
Yeah.
keep it fit. Believe me, because that's something that definitely I've experienced, and which is why today, and I think Brother Shane is going to talk about this as well. I think the biggest advice I could give about investing in myself, aside from all of the other things in terms of like career and all this, is just staying fit takes work, and investing in doing it earlier and maintaining and sustaining it, I think, is important, because I didn't start really any kind of exercise like you'd mentioned until I was already in my 50s. Any regular routine exercising, I started biking 4.5 years ago, and that was literally the only exercise that I do is just biking, and part of it is because of my knees, because I can't run because my knees are just they're not built for running. But so cycling is something I took on, and I think, Brother Shane, I think your advice would be very similar, right?
Yeah. Well, my advice is, and part of it's financial, is to invest in assets for your future, right? So one of them is your health. Another one is your relationships, right? So one thing that a lot of things happened in my 20s that I took for granted. I'd never had to exercise or worry about what I eat or anything in my 20s, and in my 30s that changed. Um, and then I know. um, the other would be investing in relationships. I had so many friends and colleagues, and I was the first to Poe in my family, so everybody just kind of hovered around me. I took that for granted. And then when I left, I abandoned all that in a mean way with everybody. And so I had to come back and rebuild that in my 50s, rebuild those relationships, friendships, right? They're friendships. Who of your friends today you have going to have when you're 50? Invest in those people. The other is weed the people out that are negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's my advice. I also I didn't think I needed to go to school, and my father made me. He made me go, and he refused to pay for it, which was really a great story I have in itself, right? But I went and I graduated, and that was the right choice. I wasn't even sure what I was going to go for, but I just went until I found a field that matched me, and then I graduated. And then later in life, it turned out that I did need that degree. It's not the same today. But that was, again, another just kind of a blind investment in myself that worked out.
Right.
Health, relationships, and then obviously the faith is a piece.
Yeah. Well, that is an investment, right? And it's an investment that comes with risk, as you mentioned in the previous slide, because joining a church, you and I are both converts. We've talked about this, that when you go in with faith to learn more about faith, right? Because you have to have faith that what decision you've made is the right one. So I think that's definitely an investment that both you and I have obviously yielded tremendous benefit from. Right? So let's go to the next, which is embracing failure as a teacher. This is always a fun one. So, Brother Shane, how is it that you learned about investing or embracing failure as a teaching tool for you?
Well,
What advice would you give yourself?
I may get cut off of the podcast, but let me just jump in. So for me, toxic fuel has been the big thing for me. So, and coming into a Filipino family, I see there's sometimes toxic fuel in Filipino families, right? Where people are telling you, don't do this, you can't do that, you're going to fail, you're crazy, why are you doing that? That just fired me up and made me want to do things more. And that resulted in some horrible failures, right? I was like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do this anyway. And then it all fell apart. But those were risks. I went about it the wrong way. But in the end, it was very beneficial for me. In the end, I became stronger. I learned a lot. I met new people. I learned new things. I learned that you're not going to die from failure. It's okay.
Well, unless you fail to put on the seatbelt when you get on that roller coaster, right, Sister
Well,
Lida? Yeah,
I
that
was
could
gonna say that as
that
well,
might not end
actually.
well, but yeah.
okay. I'm talking about career.
Career. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So, it's okay. Um, that really is my attitude to risk is that even today, if I've got a choice, like just now, I got laid off on my job. I worked 34 years and I was laid
Mhm.
off in April and I couldn't find a job. Couldn't find a job to save my life. 6 months was a very difficult experience for me. So I took what little savings I had and I bought a small business, which is a huge risk at my
It
age,
is.
right? But here I am. I'm a business owner, and I just got my first customer starting next week. Things are picking up, and I know in my heart that it's going to be okay. I'm a business guy. I can do this. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Um, but boy, it's scary, right? And
Oh, it
the
is.
way I can do that now is I know that in my past I failed so many times, and you just get back up. I'm a big fan of Sun Tzu, right? I'm also a fan of that. Is that Bushido that fall down 7
Right. Fall down and
times?
get back up again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
And
story of my life, just getting back.
that's a great sort of perspective on things. Great. Thank you. What about you, Sister Elida? In, the number of times that maybe we failed in the past, how, what advice would you give yourself about understanding how to treat that?
So this is definitely a topic that I had to embrace recently, well, more than when I was a little kid. I'm also an organist at church, so it's a lot to learn a hymn, and especially now the hymns are getting harder. And I remember when I was younger, when I was first starting out, I would be so hard on myself. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't even do this. Sometimes I'd cry and I would just sit in silence and just think, man, I can't believe I can't do this. Like, oh, what am I doing? And I really saw myself as a failure. But I think what's an important thing is a trait to have is to never give up. Because if I gave up then I wouldn't be where I am now. And now I have a lot more knowledge. Now I have a lot more perseverance, a lot more patience with myself. And now it takes less time to learn a hymn or less time to get something down because of all the failures that I went through before. So yeah, I think that's my advice to myself is never give up. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to have emotions when you don't get it right the first time. And yeah, it's awesome.
And I think that's a great approach to things because when you talk about how looking at failure as being a teacher, we often don't look at it that way when we're younger, right? Because you get so caught up in the fact that, oh, I failed. So the immediate sort of knee jerk reaction or the visceral reaction to it is, well, I'm just not going to try anymore because I'm obviously no good at it. Whereas you embraced it the other way, where you took it and you helped to allow it to improve you, right? And for Brother Shane, he took it and realized, well, yeah, I failed and I'm going to try something different. And when I fail, I'm going to try something different. And all of those experiences have allowed him to build all of this sort of library of knowledge now that he's taking and moving forward with. And I think for me, the advice that I would give my younger self around embracing failure as a teacher is, yeah, failing is something that's going to happen because that means you've at least tried, right? And in order for us to learn how to make good decisions, often that comes from experience, and experience often comes from bad decisions. So if we failed and then we have experience from that, then that helps us to make better decisions in the future. And the one piece of advice that I give my younger self, because I lived in a lot of this as when I was younger, was regret. right? So you failed and then you regret. And regret to me personally is just, it's a wasted emotion because it doesn't yield anything. You can't change what happened, right? Regret causes you to waste time because now you're focused so much on what I did wrong and how I did wrong. And if, unless you're learning from it, it really isn't helping you. So I think for myself, it's, my advice would have been, don't regret so much, learn from it and move forward. So that way you'll be able to, I could have gotten myself out of the, out of the rut a lot faster
Mhm.
if I didn't live there in regret. I think that was a big part of it. Um, as we want to get through the last couple here, building meaningful relationships. And I think, brother Shane, you already touched on this a little bit about when we were talking about taking risks, right? So the advice you'd give yourself around building meaningful connections when you were younger.
Right. You got to look around and decide who your real friends are. Right. We
Hmm.
actually we talk about this with my daughter. She's 3. She has some kids at school that are really not nice to her. She wants them to be her friend, and then she has other kids that are friends no matter what. And I'm trying to teach her, like, hey, Naomi's your friend. Igor, probably not a good friend. And,
And those
and
are fictitious names, by the way. We're not calling out any little kids on the air.
Yeah,
correct,
this
right,
is not
right, and right, these are fictitious names, um, and so it's hard to teach her because I'm thinking about that, right? That I didn't really have good taste in understanding who my real friends were. Like my best friend, now you could see he's kind of cut out in this picture, right? He was the guy that was always there for me no matter what. And I took him for granted and I never really thought about it. And all these other guys that I was hanging out with and we were doing all this fun stuff and they're all gone, right? They when things got tough, those people were not there, right? And you have to judge who that's going to be. Then you have to take time to stay connected to that person. You may move 9,000 miles away, still have to be connected somehow because those things are valuable later. Uh,
That's
Same with
such an
family.
important, piece because I think for me, that's what resonates around you. You make good decisions to find the right people, right? That you're gonna, that are gonna help uplift you, that aren't negative, that aren't the people who are only there because they're there to have a good time, but they're there through your ups and your downs and everything. Those are your real friends. But maintaining those connections, I think that's the advice I would give myself because I have had friends that I've had through that I would consider like back in the day. I think the term they use today is like ride or die, right? Those are your friends that just are going to be with you through everything. And I've had
very
friends
cool
like
of you to
that.
say that.
Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
and it's, but these are friends that I wish I'd stayed connected with, right? Because we've lost touch. Now I can't find them on social media. I don't have their emails anymore. I don't have, phone numbers have changed, right? So I think stay building meaningful relationships is important, but I think the advice I would give is take the time and do everything you can to keep those connections because 10, 15, 20 years from now, those are the people that you're going to be able to rely on, but then you're not going to know how to get a hold of them. And you've lost
Mhm.
those connections and you don't want to lose those connections. So you want to stay connected with them. What about you,
I
Sister
think
Lida?
that's
Mhm.
definitely where I am, Brother Rob. That's in that realm of maintaining and building relationships, and imagining like, if I don't, where will I be years from now when I need someone, or when I'm thinking about them and I can't get a hold of them, like you said. So, and I think like what you said, of the regret, it goes back to that. You're like, oh man, I should have kept talking to them. I should
Yeah.
have gotten
Yeah.
the number. I should have, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's true. We waste a lot of time thinking that. So that's definitely where I am. I want to build those relationships so I don't have to experience that later in my
Yeah,
life.
you want to hang on to those relationships because there's those friends, those real friends are few and far between, and you want to make sure that you hang on to them. I know, Brother Shane, you've been blessed that you've been able to keep connections with those people who were that important in your life. Now, a financial, this is a tough one. Financial wisdom for the long run. When you're younger, it's so easy to just squander the money you make when you get your first job. But what advice, Brother Shane, would you give around tips on saving or investing, and how to cultivate a healthy financial habit for you? because it's not necessarily what you think about when you're in your teens, right? Or in your
Well,
early 20s.
two things. So first, it's back to investing in yourself. Invest in financial knowledge, because you can go to school and get a degree and they will not teach you anything about money. Especially here in the West, it's a very different system here, and you have to understand some key things about how to survive in a financial society. And I didn't have that education as a kid. And so I met some great mentors through work that gave me great advice. And even today, I follow some great podcasters on finance. I try every week to listen to one person that I think is a good sound, solid, giving me advice on, yeah, you need to do the right things financially for yourself. Um, I've made a lot of money in my life, and a lot of money in my life multiple times. And money isn't real and it doesn't matter, but it can be a big stressor, especially in our families, right? It's a measure of success here in the US. So you have to, I know there's pressure on how much money, especially the guys, right? How much money am I going to make? How am I going to perform? So you need to learn and understand outside of school how to handle your personal finances young, because if you can get a good understanding, Martha Robert and I were talking about, we know two brothers, right? One, the older brother, is very sound financially. And the older brother just got married, and the younger brother's just gotten engaged. And the younger brother is footloose and fancy free. And thank goodness for him, he's got a kuya that knows what he's doing, that he listens to, right? I wish I had that when I was 18.
You and
But
me both. You and me
you
both.
need somebody in
Yeah.
your life to say, no, you know what? Hey, live within your means. Maybe take a percentage of your check and invest. Take a percentage of your check and save, and what's left, then go buy shoes, right? And that's hard to hear when you're 20. We were joking in the beginning about I could give myself a lot of advice. I don't know how much I would have listened to, but
When you were younger, right? Yeah, it's always tough. Well, I want to get through the next one because there's a couple. So I want to get to Sister Elida. What about flexibility? How would you learn? What would you tell yourself about being more flexible today because of unexpected detours in life? And I know there's probably still yet more detours in life, especially for you to experience. But from the ones that you've already experienced, what advice would you give yourself around that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brother Rob, Brother Shane, you guys have so much wisdom and experiences, and I feel like I only touch on like the past couple years.
And that's fine because you probably have already learned from it, right? So
Yeah, I know, but it's so nice to hear that. I think it's really eye-opening. It's great. But I agree with you, Brother Shane. What are the odds that your younger self would listen to this advice? It's very true.
would you
But
listen to what we're telling you right now, Sister Elida?
I'm
Because you're
trying to.
you're you're about the target age that Brother Shane
it's a
and I would
very,
be to.
very
I was
short
gonna say
list.
that.
It's a very
Yeah.
short list, right?
Yes, like exactly what you guys were talking about, the financial wisdom. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's something definitely we should we should at my age. In terms of flexibility, I would say again, this is like advice that I would tell myself a couple years ago, where before, if there was no plan, I would just I don't know what to do with myself. Like if I didn't know what to expect, the unexpected creeps in and I don't know what to do. Like I'm stuck. I'm frozen. But over the years, I've learned problem solving. And I think part of that is arts and crafts. I don't know why it is, but it is. And it helps in if there's a problem or something doesn't work out the way you want it, you fix it and make it better. So I've gotten into painting, and I've gotten into making like little clay sculptures and other arts and crafts and crocheting. So instead of like giving up or thinking, oh my God, this it's messed up, I'm thinking, okay, wait, how can I fix it? Because I'm already here. Might
Yeah.
as well just fix it. I'm still doing it. So yeah, and I've learned that recently. So it's good to have
that's a great lesson. That is a great lesson on learning how to be
It's
flexible.
also good to have a hobby that every minute of the hobby doesn't cost money. So that's also a good thing about arts. And
Yeah,
crafts.
exactly. Yeah, cheap
Right.
hobbies.
You can
I
go
can think of a lot more of these.
and chill out and not have to get in an Uber and go somewhere and spend $40, right?
Yeah.
That's a good habit to have.
Not so much of that hobby. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We could have gone on for another 2 hours. I'm not kidding. But as you know, we are the fastest 30 minutes on radio here on INCRadio Florida, and of course, our friends over at INCRadio South Central States are coming up next, and we want to make sure that we thank everyone for joining us today. Of course, for those of you that were in the live chat, we saw what you were saying and are so grateful to your continuing to be engaged and joining us every week. But for now, this is Brother Robert Tapalis here in Tampa, Florida, for Brother Shane, who also happens to be here in Tampa, Florida, and of course, Sister Elida, who happens to be there in the central part of the state in Orlando. Thank you so much for joining us on INCRadio. We will see you next week.
This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.